guys. Yes, I hope everyone is doing all right. Today, how are you doing, Hussein, and everyone who's here? Today, we shall be covering something to do with IT foundations. What do we understand by IT foundations? Computer hardware, networking, cybersecurity basics, all that. What do you understand by cloud computing? We are going to just be covering a glimpse of the IT foundations, especially for those that want to take career paths, maybe in IT support, IT technicians. These are very, very fundamental. So let's begin today's process as we go through this. Thank you very much. Let's continue. So in our instances, let's say the internet service provider gives out, let me say for the people that are using phones, will give out the SIM cards that access the internet. So they get the internet from the internet service provider. If you're using a router, it comes to the router. If it goes to the router, then you can connect the router to a switch. Yes. Then
Yeah.
from the switch, then you connect to different what? Local area networks using Ethernet cables to different areas. And then still from the router, someone can connect through the wireless local area network. So until we get the device, until we get the what? The internet onto our devices. But through all that process from the start, there's something that is crucial. You tell me about what you understand with the term IP address. IP.
Oh, yeah. IP address, I would say, is like a unique identifier. IP address basically means like internet protocol, but as I've read it, its function is to direct where the data is supposed to go or where it's supposed to be received. Like, for example, I may say like the way you have an address at your home. For this case, this is an address for computers which are connected to a network.
Okay. So an IP address is a unique identifier assigned to every device on the network. So you're going to share your screen, yeah? I hope you're
Yeah,
using your PC, not so? You're going to
yeah,
share your
yeah.
screen. I want you to share with me, I want you to show me your IP address. You know how to find it on your PC?
I can try, but I
Ah,
haven't done it yet.
okay, you share your screen, then we go slowly over it.
Yeah, can you see it?
I get your screen, I'm seeing it.
This is my Wi-Fi, which I'm connected to on. I think the IP address is, which I think these are the IP addresses because there are many versions of the IP address, right? Yeah,
What is
yeah.
your IP address according to you? If you're to check for your IP address, what is your IP address?
According to me, I would say my IP address is this one, the
Okay,
version 4.
okay. So what is the difference between version 4 and version 6?
Version 4, I think it was the old one, and
Yes?
they updated to a new one, which is version 6, because as I've read, the version 4 was starting to be like to have many devices connected to it. Like they didn't have any sports because once an IP address has been taken, it can be given to another device. So each device has to have its own IP address. So the version 4 was already starting to fill up. It had many devices connected on it. So they switched to a version 6.
Okay, that is very, very, very right. It looks like for the IP addresses, you did very, very good research. Okay,
Yeah, I told you
so
I had someone to help me.
eh, you had someone to help you. Okay, that
Yeah,
is good. So, so those are the types of the IP addresses, the IPv4 and the IPv6, which you've explained very, very well. So, and the reason was why one was introduced the same. The had run out of addresses because the other one, I think the IPv4 limits us to around 4.3 billion IP addresses. This one Since it's a 128-digit code, it takes us until there's no limiting. So we are going to, what are the types? It's still types of IP address allocation. What do you understand by term IP address allocation?
Uh, I would say, am I the one answering only? Because I think there are
There is
other
someone
people.
that has joined in. Yes,
Yeah.
Beata, you want to answer that, or you still getting yourself ready? How are you doing, Lucky?
I'm fine. How you doing, sir?
I'm okay. So we're talking about IP address. What do you understand by term IP address allocation?
Sorry, you asked the question, right?
Yes.
It's more like the address of your device on the internet.
Okay, that's okay. So we had reached the part where we are talking about the types of IP address allocation. What do you think is the type? Anyone who can share, maybe Hussein, what do you think?
For me, I think IP address allocation would be like the process in which the devices are given their IP addresses. For example, let's say if my computer was to connect to a Wi-Fi, there is this like protocol, I think, which is which its main function is to give my laptop once it's connected to the wireless to give it an IP address.
Okay.
So I think the IP address allocation would be mainly done with that protocol.
So the main essence of IP address is to make sure that data is delivered to the correct destination. Remember, different computers, different devices have different IP addresses. So in this is the only way every device, if I'm to specify, like here I can easily say this is Biata because her name, I'll see her name, or I can say this is Hussein, I can say this is Lucky, this is Zahara. The only way I can say that is because I know your names. That's what identifies you. So it's the same thing with IP addresses. So once an IP address is allocated to a specific device, that's how the device is identified easily. So the data, so in that, why there is IP address allocation is so that every device has its specific location. If I'm to send, let me say, if it's a computer, if we are in a company and we are supposed to print and we all have one printer, we are going to assign that printer a specific IP address. Why? Why do you think so? Anyone who can give us a reason? Beata, can you say something about that? Lucky? So I think Hussein, the question is going to come back to you who took some time. So Hussein, what do you think?
You say why you asked why
why
like
why
a
in a
printer?
room where we are having different users, yes, with
Yeah.
different IP addresses, but we have assigned a specific, let me say we have assigned the same printer that we are using, the same IP address, and one IP address.
Yeah,
Why
you're
would we
asking
do
why
that?
we ask.
Yeah, why would we do
Oh,
that? Why would you give a printer the same IP address, not a different one, like all our other devices? Okay, now let me make it easier for you. Have you heard of something about static IP address and then a dynamic IP address? You never reached that part of static IP addresses and dynamic IP addresses? Dynamic IP addresses, these are IP addresses that are different. Let me say, let me say, if you're actually, the best part is this. If you check, you might be on the same internet, maybe on the same Wi-Fi, your phone and your computer. Yes? But you're going to find the IP address on your phone is a little bit different from the IP address on your computer. Yet it's the same internet service provider. And then whereas you're going to find that if you come to your Wi-Fi, it's going to have the same IP address, one IP address. Yes? That is modified when we come down here. So why would our router have a static IP address, but then our devices have different dynamic IP addresses?
I was about to say that, as you said, as you mentioned on the Wi-Fi, we only have one IP addresses, but the devices have different IP address because If we both have one IP address, one wouldn't be able to work. Like it would require us to change the IP address.
We are going to use, we shall use Linda. Linda is close here in office. So Linda is going to share her IP address, and then I'll also share my IP address. So you're going to see that, you're going to see we are all on the same internet service provider. So you're going to see. So Linda, you can share your IP address.
My IP address by default is 192.168.8.101. Subnet mouse is the same as with the default gateway.
I want us to look at her default getaway. Linda, you can share your screen again. Let us look at your default getaway. It's going to be very, very crucial. As I also share, I'm going to share mine. Let her share hers, and you're going to see that we are going to have the same IP. So I hope you guys can see. You're seeing the IP address, the IPv for default getaway. It's 192.168. So what changes is the IP address. You saw hers was 101. Mine is 100. So we are having dynamic IP addresses, but we are all on the default, the same internet service provider. That is, I think for the DNS server, we have the same. The rest are all the same. But then here, they're giving us different addresses so that we can easily identify. So that if I'm to send something maybe to her, it will go to the IP address that ends with 101, rather than going to the IP address that ends with 100, which is mine. So that way we are having the same default getaway, but what differs are the IP address. So this is a form of a dynamic IP address. But then you see the default getaway for both of our devices is static. Yes. Why is it static? This is coming from the ISP, from the internet service provider. So this is from the internet service provider. So this is the IP address that is allocated to our router. So if this, that means it is static. However, it can be changed for them, but right now it's the IP address that has been given to us. So it's the static one right now. So, but then ours here for the different devices we have dynamic. Same, but it becomes dynamic. So it's the same thing. So now that's the difference. So why would we have a printer? Why would a printer be on a static IP address that is being used by very many computers? Why it's on a static IP address is that in case Hussein sends a file and they want to print it out, it will automatically go to the printer and it's printed out. It's the same thing. If Beata also does the same thing, it's still going to come out. So the printer, since it's shared, we give it a specific location. So we give it a unique identifier, and that unique identifier is what we call the IP address. So it stays with a specific IP address. Yes. So now for us, the dynamic IP addresses that we are having here. Remember, the internet service provider will have very many users. So let's say the internet service provider has given out very many routers. So the different routers, obviously, they will automatically be assigned to different IP addresses, dynamic IP addresses. But those are dynamic IP addresses. But to us, the people that are receiving the internet, the users down, if we connect our laptops, if we connect our phones, we are going to have dynamic IP addresses. But in that case, what serves as our static IP address will be the IP address from the dynamic from this internet service provider. But however, if you compare our IP address, I hope you guys are getting me. If you compare our IP address to another internet service provider. No, if you are to compare our router IP address to another person from the same internet service provider with another IP address, you're going to find they are also having different IP addresses. Yes, because in that case, these routers are also in the same pool of dynamic IP addresses. So the IP addresses help assign. So let's go back to what we are doing. I hope they have been gotten between the difference between a static IP address and a dynamic IP address. So let's get something practical. when do we use, each one of us is going to give an example. When do we use a dynamic IP address and when we can apply a static IP address? We are going to use a daily life scenario. So I think I'll begin with Linda. From Linda, it will be Beata to Zahara to Lucky, then to Hussein in that order.
Mr. David, sorry, I was a little bit away. I didn't get that, please.
Let me repeat the question. I said, can we have scenarios? Each one of us give a scenario of when you can use when a static IP address is applied and when a dynamic IP address is applied. So we are going to start with Linda. From Linda, we shall go to Beata. I hope she's now okay. Then we shall go to Zahara. We shall go to you, Lucky, and then we shall go to Hussein. Yes.
As Mr. David says, static IP address is a fixed IP address that never changes. Like to set manually, and dynamic is like temporary IP address automatically given by routers or ICP. So I think we use static IP address when we need the device or a service to mass always reachable easily at the same addresses. And I think on dynamic, we use dynamic when like we don't want like maybe private things because it always change and it cannot be available reached. So I think it's just we use dynamic when we don't need a fixed address or want easier management, because for dynamic is easy to manage. Like example, home internet connection, it requires the dynamic cause like even public Wi-Fi. But for static, is like companies they must use them. Even is typically uses in remote access control, even on web servers. So even on businesses, that's my opinion.
So we are going to be doing this in a very simple manner. You're going to say a printer will have static IP address. Then if this is my laptop, it is going to have a dynamic IP address. Then you'll give us a reason. We are going to have a printer use a static IP address because the printer is going to be shared. Then why is my laptop having a, a dynamic IP address? So let's go to the next person. I think Beata, is it okay right now?
Yeah, it's okay. As you asked, when do we use static IP address and dynamic? As Linda said, static IP address is the one that doesn't change, and the dynamic is the one changes. So when I give an example for static IP, it's like, let's say when we are in the office and we want to use the same printer, that at that time we're gonna use a static IP. If we have a static IP, and for dynamic, let's say like when I'm home, my laptop can have different IP with like my phone. Yeah, I think that's how I understand. Thank you.
So we have all said the printer, me and Beata. So the next person, I don't expect a printer. Let me expect a new example for the static IP address. That we shall easily understand. So we are going to Zahara next.
Hi everyone. Hope everyone is fine. A static IP address is manually assigned and does not change over time, while a dynamic IP address is a temporary one and based for flexible simplicity. For example, dynamic can be used on phones, tablets that move between networks, while the static while the static while the static IP address is also is used in hosting servers like emails, websites, and also on remote desktops like security cameras, for example.
Okay. And Zahara has also given us an example. We are coming to you, Lucky.
Okay, for a static IP address, say you run a small business and you kind of host your own website. When they visit it, the IP address remains the same. Gets it doesn't change. Get but that of a dynamic IP address, it changes. Gets so you restart your say your Wi-Fi router, have a Wi-Fi router here. Gets restarts. I notice that the IP address that it assigns changes automatically.
So let's
Okay.
hear from, I think, Hussein.
Um, Greetings, everybody. I think most of the people here gave examples for local area networks. Me would like to go for like a personal area network. For example, my phone. If I switch on like the hotspot, my phone would have like the static IP address, and for my laptop to connect to my phone using my hotspot, it would use like a dynamic IP address. Yeah, that's my example.
Yeah, thank you for applying the concept very well, Hussein. So I think we remain with Bernard.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So let me start with a static IP address. A static IP address, like for a printer, it doesn't change because other devices need to be getting that exact IP address for easy connectivity. If it was like a dynamic, it would be changing every now and then, and it would need frequent configuration for every device that is going to connect to it. While dynamic IP address changes, like for a phone, on a laptop, because it connects and it disconnects every different time that one is getting to use it. I think that's the simplest way I can make it.
Okay, so I want us to conclude this once and for all. So we are going to go over this very, very quickly. Once I mention a scenario, I mention your name, then you give me what is the recommended type of the IP address. So Lucky, if I'm hosting a website, what should be my IP address? Do I use dynamic or static?
You're going to use a static.
Okay, that's correct. So we shall go to Zahara. If I'm running a home Wi-Fi, what is going to be my IP address?
That's a dynamic.
You're going to use a dynamic.
So if an internet service provider, an ISP, is assigning to customers, what type of IP addresses do they use? Hussein.
The customers will be using the dynamic since the internet service provider is the one which has the static one.
Okay. Still on that same one, this will go to Beata. Beata, if an internet service provider assigns to a corporate company, yes, to their routers, those routers will be having which type? Is it dynamic or static?
Static.
We have all gotten the concept, yes, of the dynamic and the static, yes. So now let's continue to something else. So for those that joined us midway, we are doing something about IT foundations, only that we had gone further into the network. So we are now going to come back to something that is very, very, very easier. So let me ask you, actually, before we go, what is the difference between a public IP address and a private IP address? Before we go back to what we're doing, who can answer that? Let me give you an example. I'm using my phone. What type of IP address does it have? Beata?
I think you're using a dynamic.
Yes, I'm using a dynamic IP address. That is correct. But now we are looking at a private and a public IP address. If I'm using my phone, am I using a
I think it's
public
a
or a private?
private.
It's a
It's a
private.
private
How would you say it's a private, not a public?
because it is by yourself. You are using it as a local internet.
Okay, that's correct. So now let me give you an example. Give me an example of a public IP address.
Uh, Netflix.
Why would you say, that's what I want to know, why would you say that Netflix is on a public IP address, not a private IP?
Because it is accessed by everyone.
To add on what they are saying, I think a private network would require like some sort of password or code in order to be able to connect to that IP address. That's what differentiates like public and the private network.
Okay, that's right. Now, Hussein, this is still yours. If I have a router and it's connected to my laptop, on the router and the laptop, which one has a public IP address?
The router, of course, would have the public IP address.
So that is enough for the networking. We shall come back later for the DNS, the DHCP. We shall come back later for that, explaining further. We only went deep into networking. So we're still going through the IT foundations, and we had so far finished 3. We had started with the introduction, what is IT, something like that, computer hardware, operating systems, and we had spoken about networking fundamentals. That's what we have been doing. Yes.